what is going on today? We will only look at the top of an incredibly horrific iceberg. Again, viewer discretion is advised. Abortion is legal in most Western countries, but it is not morally lawful. Morally lawful and legal don't mean the same thing. According to the American Life League, the total number of abortions in the US alone from 1973 to 2018 stands at 61.8 million, while an average of between 50 and 60 million babies are killed worldwide every year. In their monumental 2018 work, Abortion Worldwide Report, Jacobson and Johnston revealed that over 1 billion babies have been aborted from 1920 to 2015. What on earth has happened to a society where it has become acceptable to kill innocent little babies on a daily basis in their millions? No matter what the reasoning, abortions in general is all because of the rejection of absolute moral laws. Moreover, the rejection of the absolute moral lawgiver, whom forbids murder. This article was written in 2014 already. While the title of this article may read like something from a horror novel, it is unfortunately very much true. The Telegraph has reported that in the United Kingdom, bodies of more than 15,500 aborted and miscarried babies have been burned in the National Health Service's incinerators over the past 2 years. The babies were incinerated by 27 NHS trusts, of which 10 admitted burning the remains alongside other rubbish, and 2 trusts used the bodies in waste-to-energy plants to generate power for heat in hospitals. It was discovered that parents were not consulted about their wishes for the remains of their children. Dr. Bruce Waltke points out that fundamental to Genesis and the entirety of Scripture is the creation of humanity in the image of God. The expression image of God is used uniquely with reference to human beings and so sets them apart from other creatures. However, evolution means that there is no basis for seeing humans as more advanced or developed than any other species. Phil Robinson, the author of this article, wrote, "So it is not surprising that in our currently evolution-saturated world, the sanctity of human life has been forgotten, meaning humans can be murdered and then just incinerated like any other waste item. The babies were seen only as organic waste, like a tumor or cancerous cells that had been removed from a body. They were given no rights or dignity. Their value was not grasped." Which is why atheistic evolutionists like Richard Dawkins state that any human fetus is less human than an adult pig. On the 23rd of February 2012, Alberto Giubellini of Monash University and Francesca Minerva of the Oxford O'Hara Centre for Practical Ethics published a paper entitled "After-Birth Abortion: Why Should the Baby Live?" Ironically, this was published in, wait for it, the Journal of Medical Ethics. The abstract reads, "Abortion is largely accepted even for reasons that do not have anything to do with the fetus's health, by showing that, number one, both fetuses and newborns do not have the same moral status as actual persons, and two, the fact that both are potential persons is morally irrelevant, and three, adoption is not always in the best interest of actual people. The authors argue that what we call after-birth abortion, killing a newborn, should be permissible in all the cases where abortion is, including cases where the newborn is not disabled. Well, adoption is certainly a better option for the baby than being torn apart and butchered in the mother's womb. The state of New York has been in the news in 2019 for a horrifying reason. The New York State Senate passed the Reproductive Health Act the evening of the anniversary of the tragic Roe v. Wade decision of 1973 that legalized abortion across the US. This legislation makes it legal to abort a child at any point in the pregnancy for any reason up to birth, changing the previous law that banned abortion after 24 weeks when a child is considered viable outside the womb. This law even removes criminal penalties for harming an unborn child who is wanted by the mother. If violence results in her baby dying, the perpetrator used to be charged with murder. But New York's new law removes protections for pregnant women who are victims of domestic or other violence. How horrifically ironic that a state which has now banned the lethal injection of criminals has now allowed the lethal injection of unborn babies. As Governor Cuomo signed the bill into law, lawmakers applauded and cheered. That evening, the Empire State Building glowed pink to celebrate this victory for women's rights.
As you probably heard by now, the state of New York just removed virtually all legal protections for preborn children and safeguards for pregnant women victimized by the abortion industry. Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, signed the Reproductive Health Act, or RHA, on the 46th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, which the pro-life movement somberly remembered on that same day, January 22nd. About 61 million children have died since that Supreme Court decision. New York's new law will endanger even more children and mothers than ever before. So let's discuss a few elements of this new law, the Reproductive Health Act. RHA now legalizes abortion until the moment of birth, but New York is not the only state to have done so. In fact, 6 other states plus DC also allow abortion until birth. They're Alaska, Colorado, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, and Vermont. But what makes the RHA stand out is how it was celebrated by the abortion movement. It was cheered and applauded and publicly celebrated in New York. The bill passed the state assembly by a large margin and was signed into law in the presence of the most radical and fringe abortion activists. The signing was followed by a government-mandated celebration across iconic New York. Governor Cuomo ordered that historic landmarks around the city be lit up in pink, that beautiful color which has been usurped by Planned Parenthood, to celebrate the impending deaths of New York's most defenseless children. Perhaps most egregiously, the spire of One World Trade Center, where 11 preborn children died on 9/11 and are memorialized there, was also lit up in pink. Cuomo said in a statement, "I am directing that New York's landmarks be lit in pink to celebrate this achievement and shine a bright light forward for the rest of the nation to follow." Hey, when we label the wanton killing of our own children a bright light, we know we are in an age of unprecedented evil. Here are some more basics of the new law, RHA. Abortion is now legal in New York through all 9 months of pregnancy on demand for essentially any reason. New York no longer recognizes a human being as a person until after he or she has been born. Let me comment. Once again, instead of being valued for simply being human, abortion activists continue to rely on the ambiguous and discriminatory label of quote-unquote personhood in order to justify killing an entire class of human beings. Humans have killed other humans throughout history because of race, gender, size, color, religion, geography, social class, and a host of other traits. Personhood is simply the latest discrimination factor and the current favorite of the abortion industry. But even with that egregious application of this personhood discrimination label, children who survive abortion and are born are not protected by the law. The RHA removes legal protections that once ensured that viable babies who survived abortion should be given medical treatment. This bill reflects a pure, unadulterated hatred of children in the womb. But does it even protect women? Hardly. For example, the RHA says that certain non-physicians can now commit abortions in New York. Well, what happened to giving women the very best medical care for their abortions? Is this a return to those back alley abortions that we heard about so many years ago? The RHA also repeals New York laws that punish criminals who harm women in an attempt to kill their preborn children, leaving the mothers of wanted children to mourn the death of their children without recourse to the state. New York became the home of the very first version of a Planned Parenthood clinic over 100 years ago, and it has led the abortion movement for decades. New York City is, by a large margin, the most abortion-dense area in the U.S., and according to the city's own documentation, more African American children are aborted than born alive in New York City. You heard that right. If you are a black baby, the worst place you can find yourself is in your mother's womb. And New York just celebrated this advancement of the culture of death with applause and pink lights. The leading cause of death in our country is the killing of our own children in the womb, and New York continues to promote and advance this culture of death. For Human Coalition, I'm Brian Fisher.
New Zealand have now passed the Abortion Legislation Act 2020, which removes abortion from the Crimes Act. In addition, abortion is now available up to birth on demand for any reason. There is now no legal age limit on seeking or having an abortion. Parental notification is not required for minors. Sex-selective abortions are legal. The 20-week limit for disability-selective abortions have been scrapped, and babies born alive after a failed abortion do not have to be given medical support. Considering the fact that the baby can routinely survive as early as 21 weeks into the pregnancy, and the fact that late-term abortion is very risky and hard on the mother's body, although not as hard as on the baby's body, it is impossible to see how someone who truly cares about a mother's health would recommend killing the baby in the mother's body via a lethal injection to the head or abdomen of the baby, causing a very painful death. The mother carrying her dead baby in her body for up to 3 days and eventually delivering the dead baby, either in hospital or at home or often into a toilet. How is this the best option for mother or baby? If ending a pregnancy in the 3rd trimester is done for medical reasons, by far the fastest and safest option for the mother is delivering a live, premature baby, giving him or her a chance to live, with the option of being adopted if the birth mother feels unable or unwilling to raise the baby. In September 2020, it was reported that scientists from the University of Pittsburgh had taken the scalps from 18 to 20-week aborted babies, grafted them onto the backs of live mice, and watched the human skin and hair grow. They also took some of the baby's internal organs and diced them, small enough to inject into the rodents. Funded by the US tax dollars via the National Institute for Health, the purpose of the experiment was to investigate disease and immune responses in humanized mice and rats. The article further explains how the hair from the baby's scalps continue to grow in their original colors. The photos from the research paper show the darker human hair contrasted against the fine white hairs on the backs of mice. Now, if you are shocked to the core, you should be, because each tiny scalp belonged to an innocent little baby, made in the image of God. How ironic that at the end of the scientific reports paper, an ethical approval section outlines the researchers' strict adherence to critical protocols for rodent care. Was the same care afforded to these babies? Absolutely not. After being slaughtered at abortion clinics, they were simply administratively de-identified and referred to as human fetal tissues. In fact, the sentence in the so-called ethical approval section sums up the moral deprivation our society has fallen to. This article is dated April 14, 2021. We'll just look at a few excerpts. Last week, legal accountability group Judicial Watch dropped a bombshell. A nearly 600-page report proving the US government has been buying and trafficking fresh aborted baby body parts. These body parts, purchased by the US Food and Drug Administration to humanize mice and test biological drugs in scientific experiments, came from babies up to 24 weeks old gestation, just weeks from being born. Recent emails uncovered by the Judicial Watch between FDA employees and the Californian-based Advanced Bioscience Resources prove the agency spent tens of thousands of dollars buying aborted babies for unethical scientific experiments between 2012 and 2018. This is not the first time ABR has been in the spotlight, as the company was under congressional investigation for its long-standing involvement in fetal tissue trafficking. One of the oldest fetal tissue procurement firms, this company makes millions every year by harvesting organs like lungs, livers, eyeballs and brains from aborted babies and reselling them at a profit. Emails between FDA officials and ABR employees reveal disturbing conversations as they collaborate to buy and sell aborted fetuses. Records indicate ABR was paid $12,000 upfront per box of babies, some survivable out of the womb between the gestational age of 16 to 24 weeks. Most purchases are for intact thymuses and livers shipped fresh on wet ice. And if you click on the bottom link, you will see one of those emails yourself. As if these casual orders weren't horrific enough, more emails confirm that the FDA bought organs of babies who were aborted well after 20 weeks gestation, after the time a baby usually can survive outside the womb. If nothing else, this confirms the reality of late-term abortions in the US, which pro-abortion cheerleaders have denied for decades. Just the last sentence: ABR could collect over $2,000 on a single fetus it purchased for $60, and the federal government participated in this potentially illicit trade for years. Americans should be outraged that their government participates in the wide-scale human trafficking operation that created a market for harvesting the organs of murdered infants. In no humane society could such a violation of the human body and dignity occur, in which babies' eyes are harvested immediately upon death, organs marketed based on sex, and personhood attributed to mice, but not children. Until demanded otherwise, our society is complicit in the unchecked abuse and commodification of preborn children. Moral urgency is incumbent on us to condemn these atrocities sanctioned by the federal government's lead medical researchers and fight to stop them. We may lose more battles before we win, but we cannot say we never knew.